Welcome to the Something Good podcast, hosted by Renee Mueller, powered by kwELITE. This is where we interview top business professionals, industry insiders, operational managers, and thought leaders from around the nation, diving into hot current topics to help you experience something good.
All right. Good morning. We have Mr. K from Columbus High School with us today. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you do. We just started talking about some of your past experiences with being on a podcast, being on the radio. So not necessarily a podcast, but kind of the same type of genre. So tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll talk about how you got to be where you're at.
Sure. So I'm in my second year as the Director of Finance and Human Resources for Columbus Public Schools. Primarily, finance speaks for itself, kind of all the finance going on for the district, all of our budgeting, federal programs, and then with human resources, oversee the hiring process, and our staff onboards, tries to maintain good engagement with our employees.
What sorts of things do you do for good engagement?
That's a great question, and really right now, and I think all of us, whether we're in Columbus or wherever, understand that market's tight for employees.
Yes.
And, we always have focused on how you recruit and how you hire. And I had a chance to go to Orlando, Florida to a teacher shortage summit as one of the 4 representatives in Nebraska.
Teacher shortage summit?
Yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh.
So it was a nationwide summit where we talked about what are we going to do to really reinvent education, reinvent the way teachers get into the business, reinvent how we reach out to the younger generation to look at education as a career. And I think it's time.
Has this changed over the years?
It really has.
Okay.
There was always that sector that was going to go into education. And, let's face it, there are so many opportunities of what you can do professionally when you get out of school.
Yeah.
And that has changed the way we have to approach how we not only recruit people to become educators, but we realize that retention is the new recruiting.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
And if we bring in good people to Columbus, and one of the best things about being part of Columbus Public Schools and HR is we still get a pretty good pool of candidates for most of our jobs. Now, there's a lot of places that don't. Our community has a lot to offer,
right.
So it does help us recruit compared to maybe some of our other communities that would be a similar size to Columbus. But we have to find ways not only of bringing people in and getting them in the door and say, hey, congratulations, you're a teacher here, good luck.
Right.
We need to stay engaged. What are the things that they need? We provide housing support for our new hires.
In what matter?
And so we get them connected with realtors. We get them connected with renters.
Okay.
We've even tried to pair up some of our first-year teachers to be roommates.
Dating app, like for the CHS?
Let's hope not, but let's face it, husband and wives tend to stay. So
that's true. And that's, every conversation has led back to that. So the initiative of the city and the chamber is, how do we get this demographic here that's going to find other similar age groups and sort of, cohabitate, if you will, and
sure.
make a life here, and that's a big deal.
So and we've talked about those things. Our young staff wants to be involved with things to do. When I got into the profession, you joined the local softball group.
Yep.
Typically, the school had a softball team, or there was a basketball league, or a lot of different things. The teachers want to do those together. That's their comfort zone, just like any brand new workplace. Right. We're trying to help facilitate getting those going again, getting those groups together. We take our first-year teachers out to lunch a couple times a year. We get a lot of feedback for them, what's working, what's not, what could we do different. But we're also trying to do that more and more even with our current staff, is we're taking a much more active role in engaging all of our employees in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
And
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, top-down decision-making, there are times that's necessary. But more and more, if you're going to create, a work culture, and especially in organizations large as CPS,
yes, that's right.
We've got to engage everybody.
Right. It's got to be more of a leadership team than,
absolutely.
Like you said, top down. I'm the boss. No, it's a team effort. It's a team decision. Just like profitability. So yeah.
Yeah, spot on. And Dr. Lafaholtz. One thing about getting to work with him, and I know we're going to talk a little bit maybe about how I got to Columbus. Troy and I have had the chance to present together when I was the superintendent at Shelby Rising City. So
Really?
I was superintendent at Shelby Rising City for 7 years, and simultaneously as Columbus was building their high school, we had passed a bond and were revamping the district there, going under one roof, a substantial new construction and renovation to make a campus in Shelby for all of our students instead of having some in Rising City. And so Troy and I got a chance to present a couple times at administrator days, at a construction conference, and got a chance to build a great relationship and to work together. And so, a lot of people would say, well, geez, you were a superintendent and you went away from being a superintendent to take a different role in a district. And, part of that was the opportunity to work with Troy.
Really? Well, that's pretty amazing. Honestly,
be with a leader that I respect. I also, for a long time, have admired kind of the community, enjoyed being a part of the community. As a superintendent at Shelby, my family, we belong to the Elks Club and golf. We have since I've been there.
I bet that's how you know Trent.
That would be how I know Trent. So,
speaking of that, Trent has his house for sale. It really needs to be sold. We've had one offer, or more than one.
Well, we've had a lot of looks,
and
we've had one official offer. So we are looking forward to being full-time Columbusites, if that's even a word. I think I may have just coined one. We still have our house in Shelby, and we're getting ready to move here in the next month to Columbus full-time. So yeah, we'd like all that to correspond at the same time. So.
Right. And so did you choose a location that's close to the high school, or how did you guys come about that?
Well, one thing you probably know, Renee, is that Columbus has a pretty fast-moving market.
Yes, and it has for quite some time.
Yeah, and we kind of struggled to maybe hone in on what we were looking for, and if we did, it sure didn't last long.
Yeah.
And we ended up deciding, after a lot of conversation, that Columbus would be where we'll retire.
Wow, you're right.
So we'll God willing and school board willing, I'll finish my career at Columbus Public Schools.
Wow.
And so
Did you hear that, Troy? There's no chance of him leaving.
So we took a different approach, and we decided to build.
Wow.
And so kind of build our dream home. And
well, that's awesome. How is that going in this kind of market?
So we'll give a shout out to Foreman Lumber. Foreman Lumber is our builder, and we got bids from 3 different people, but they've been amazing to work with.
That's great to hear. And where is it at?
So we bought a lot at Whitetail.
Well, awesome. That's a great, beautiful area.
And again, when you talk about you decided your retirement home, it's going to be where you want to finish. That kind of changes things a little bit. I have to be in the district, so there were some limitations too. For those people that know me, I'm a pretty avid golfer, so I would have built next to a golf course given the first choice, but a lake's not a bad second.
And we have one coming up at West Elks. Are you sure you don't want to change your mind? Because you probably could sell that one at Whitetail.
Well, I probably could, except that's not in the Columbus Public Schools district.
Oh, that's true. Now you say
that's right. So, unfortunately, I would probably get myself in a little trouble there. So,
that's funny.
We found it really easy to decide that Columbus was a place we wanted to retire.
That's good. And how about family? Then your kids?
Family, I have grown kids. So I have 3 grown. My oldest lives in Chadron, married, and she's a 5th grade teacher.
Wow.
Her husband teaches, and that's my only grandson is there.
Oh.
So just getting ready to turn 2 next week. So we'll go celebrate a second
and that's
birthday.
Close, so
yep. My middle daughter, she graduated from UNL and then joined the U.S. Navy.
Oh my goodness!
And she is stationed currently at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and she's a corpsman, and so she is ranked up enough that she does training in field med for the medics that will go with the Marine platoons.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
good for
and
her.
so we've had a chance to go out. She was in Fort Worth for a long time, just at a multi jurisdictional base there. She loves what she's doing out there. And my youngest is actually a retired U.S. Navy. She went right out of high school.
Really?
Went to a year of college and decided, it really wasn't for her.
And joined the Navy.
And joined the Navy.
Goodness. That's very unusual.
It is. And we've got, both my wife and I have some uncles, my dad, all military veterans. And so she was doing search and rescue. She started in medical and did search and rescue, and unfortunately had an injury that didn't make her deployable. So she had to retire. And then she got into banking. She has since just relocated back to Omaha. She is a medical recruiter.
Really?
So a company really liked her background in the military and her understanding of medical.
Okay.
And she swore she'd never leave Florida and come home. And over the last few weeks with the cold weather, she's really wishing she hadn't
I was
come
going to
home.
say, I could say the same.
Yeah.
Never moving back, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And so she's back. So so we have all grown kids. Pretty proud of all of them
Yeah, sounds
for
like
what
you
they're
should be.
doing. And
And what does your wife do?
so my wife works at Shelby Rising. She's a special needs para.
Okay.
So her specialty is working with autistic students.
Oh,
So
okay.
she works with a nonverbal autistic student,
Wow.
and that's kind of her background and her passion, and
Okay.
pretty good at it. I think people in Shelby, I think the reality was she would be harder to replace than I was as the soup. So
That's funny. Well, it sounds like you guys have a ton of educators in your family, so
we do.
yeah,
Yeah,
apple
surprisingly
doesn't
we
fall
do.
far from the tree.
Yeah.
So yeah, good deal. So back to the conversation surrounding culture and how to retain these employees. Is this something that you guys have noticed over the past decade or just the last few years that it's harder in education since you've had experience in
Yeah,
education for a long time?
and I will tell you that there was a conversation about 8 years ago. I want to say it was about 2015, and it was part of a kind of a group that met with the Department of Ed, and there was a few soups, and the conversation was, where are we heading? And so I think at that time, what I would say is there was a ripple in the water, and I think we all feared that at what point will it start to be a wave of teacher shortages, a wave of people going a different direction, a wave of people retiring because given the ages, the baby boomer group.
Yep. That's the
Um,
big factor. I think the biggest factor we're facing in Columbus is that demographic.
Yep.
You do have an aging population.
Yeah.
So.
And so, in 2015, we had a fear, and we thought, well, we better do something. Because in about 10 years, we're going to have an issue. Well, it didn't make it 10 years. We came out of the pandemic. We started to see a lot of those issues in recruiting, retention. If you read the national rhetoric, there's a lot of people leaving the profession. We're not seeing that near as much to that extent in Nebraska. However, there are people leaving the profession. So
I think that goes
happening
for
here.
the medical field as well.
It
Nursing
does.
is really struggling. So I know they've given some substantial, we'll say, employment bonuses.
Mhm.
Just for longevity.
Mhm.
So and it is difficult. I feel like every employer I've talked to, I'm a part of several HR groups, even here locally, and they all have the same struggle. Everybody's sort of vetting the same employees, and it's incredible. Even some of the starting wages and some of what you have to do to keep these employees. It really is a struggle, and I hope that somehow we can rectify that, maybe between housing or quality of life projects, or trying to recruit more in. I know we have so many jobs open now. We have so many more coming between the casino and the other, the hotel and businesses that are coming. And so, it leads me to just wonder what the future holds and how we all as a group can really get into the same sort of effort to get these jobs filled.
Yeah,
So,
and you're absolutely right. As a school district, when we look at things like growing businesses, the casino, we assume a lot of those people are going to live here as long as we can keep the housing market up.
right.
And so, as far as the district goes, we're looking, and when you start talking 5 and 10 years, we're going to have to expand the district.
Right.
Our student population continues to grow,
hmm
and we're in a position of addressing potentially some additional facilities.
Right.
And the district's held some community meetings. Right now, we're just at the input phase. But when you look at the type of the number of doors planned, the number of plats that we get to see approved, the number of businesses, it's not unrealistic to think that, we're talking potentially another building or two.
Yes.
And we're talking now more staff, and we're talking about those increased challenges to bring in more teachers.
Right.
We are doing a relocation bonus. We help people relocate
Good to know.
to Columbus. Part of the, a brand new teacher can get a paycheck in August. We divide their paychecks into 13. Typically, they wouldn't get paid till September, but we have things for them to do in August.
Okay.
So we're trying to do things where that transition of becoming a new renter or moving to a new town
Right.
is not a fiscal strain
Yep.
for those employees. And so, that's all part of that what we can do to support getting good people here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and how long is the hiring process then typically, or from there, the onboarding process that they can?
So we've started hiring as early as January. And
Wow.
typically we have the teachers may take other positions or let us know they're retiring, and we start the hiring process in January. And it goes pretty heavy through about mid-April. And then, we'll start with some trainings and onboarding over the summer. We try to space it out. Sometimes some teachers, used to be you'd hire 99% of your people from Nebraska. And last few years, we're pulling people in from Kentucky and
I
Ohio
wondered where
and
your
Iowa
biggest.
and Kansas and Missouri and then part of that Texas, and part of that is they're relocating. Some tie back to the area.
Yep.
Is bringing them back to this area. Some of them are alumni. We love to get alumni back.
We do too. In fact, that's the basis for one of our podcasts. Honestly,
Yeah.
is just really the alumni interviewing them, asking why they're coming back, what do they want to see, how do we gain more?
Exactly.
So yeah.
And you know, and on the alumni thing, we know there's a bigger investment beyond the school, and with our new people we bring in, we're trying very hard to connect them with the community.
Good.
And
I think it makes a difference. That first impression,
absolutely.
you don't get that second chance. It really does make a big difference. And so now I know the initiative of the chamber is bringing those people in as well. And what's the right thing to show them, tell them, and then how do you keep them here? They're working on the same thing, retention of the community members. So yeah, it's something that even the agents here, when we go to look at tours and where we're taking some of these folks and the information we're giving them, it makes a big difference. So
yeah, it does. And I see, that effort. Our people see the effort that the community is making to want to evolve to meet the needs of people that want to live here.
that's good.
And that's not the case everywhere.
Right.
And so, we can appeal to those people coming to Columbus that you have an opportunity to be impactful in the district. You have a top opportunity to have a voice in what may change here as a community.
Yeah.
And, that type of responsiveness is good for all of us
Mm-hmm.
who are bringing people in. We know if we bring in great people to teach our kids, it's great for our kids.
Yes, that's
And
right.
if our students have a positive experience at CPS and a positive experience in the community, we stand a great chance getting those alumni back.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
we feel like we've got a little bit of the corner of the market because we have those kids on
Right.
keeping that cycle going in a positive way.
Well, and you're bringing people back here like Nicole.
Mhm.
I mean, I think she's a very integral part of some of these projects and really driving forward to some of the quality of life projects and other things. Being a member of the CAF, Columbus Area Future Fund, and things like that. So I know, and there's a great deal of talented staff. So and on that note, I guess I'll give a little plug for some of the stuff that we've done and have coming up. We love to use the trails out here. And at one point, I think I spoke with Dr. Loppelholtz when we first were looking at putting this building here. Had spoke to him about the trails going all the way over to the high school and how do we integrate some of the students and everything else, all the trails that are over here in Northwest Columbus. And I know the city has made it mandatory that any commercial project, you've got to have those out here in Northwest Columbus anyway. But we love using those. And so we've got beer and bagel run coming up on the Easter weekend, I believe. And so we'll
May 7th.
May 7th. Oh, sorry. Originally, I was thinking Easter weekend. So May 7th. And so we love to use those as much as possible. And the scooters, the company that has the scooters out here, and the ICE project out here, I know Dr. Loppelholtz was a big part of that as well. Some of the other things that are coming, and the field house obviously is going to be close by. And I think the high school does work in conjunction with the Y on quite a few things, right? The YMCA.
We do, yeah.
So I think it's awesome to see those collaborations, and hopefully we gain more and more. Liz obviously had a great idea with the ICE project over here, so if we have some young people really get involved and understand what's needed,
right,
and maybe they can make a business out of it or have a success story from that. But and so you guys also have the Kramer Education Center, correct? I just want to touch on that just a little bit because that's also part of your students maybe being able to go into the teaching field or something similar. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
okay.
we're going to be opening the Kramer building's the old middle school.
Yep. And
it's going under an extensive renovation.
Yes.
And it will have preschool. So right now only 3 of our elementaries have room for preschool. So we've got a very limited number. This will give us 10 preschool classrooms and some specialized instruction. The other half will be a child development center. And the child development center will be run by our foundation.
Wow.
That will be for students. It could be somebody who's half day in the preschool and then goes to the child development center. going to be able to serve meals there. I mean, it's going to have a training center. We'll eventually have administrative offices there. So, but the nice thing is what we're going to be able to do for pre-K education.
Yeah.
And for, in some ways, Child Development Center taking care of some of the daycare stresses.
Yep, that's right.
Of the district.
That is also a
the
big
community.
deal.
Yeah. And so we're excited about that project because it opens up some doors. It's going to free up some space in our elementaries, which are full. It's going to allow us to do more with our preschool population.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that.
And it really was another use for a building that had, very little opportunity. I mean, it had such a great big piece of land there. And so it's nice to see buildings refurbished and used like that.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the community made a great decision. I think using the Kramer name from the original high school name is neat. I think it's important for us to have a footprint in downtown. Yeah. As a school district. I love having our central offices move there. Not that it's bad where we're at, but I think being part of the downtown hub for our central offices and our training center and all that will also be a real positive. Yep, I agree. For us, and I agree. It allows us to show a little bit more of the community. You talk about Northwest Columbus, and for people who are familiar with the high school project, there was fields that were going to potentially south of the high school with some tennis courts, with some park, with some additional trails. Really? That was etched out as part of that. I think it's just a field right now, to the south of the high school, and that has come back on the table as part of all of our future projects that we're looking at here. There was a name for it, wasn't there? It's like a sport. They call it a sports complex. Basically, it's a couple baseball, softball fields. Had tennis courts, had trails, had a park. Yep, there was some sort of little water features or something. Yeah. So it was. I think when you talk about Northwest Columbus, that would be a great addition. And I think it ties into everything else going on in this part of town. Yep. It serves some purposes for some access both for our students but for the community. Yeah. We purchased some property on North 3rd Avenue. Right. About 80 acres, which is going to be a future school site of some extent. Yeah. And so, CPS has a lot of things going on, and we need our community's input. So I know when Dr. Loffelholz is reaching out for input, we need it. I think passing the high school bond's a great example. When the community talked about what they saw as the true need, we need that again. Yep. And look at what, it worked. Right. I mean, it's hard to believe the high school was about, 4 years ago? 2017 was when it opened. This is just incredible what has happened over here and taken shape. So So in 5 years, we've reached our 10-year projection of enrollment. Oh my gosh. When they did a study, they talked about where we would be 10 years after that was built, and we're there in 5 years. It's incredible. So that says a lot. Yep. And so that's why we're already looking at addressing some of those concerns. Wow. We want to continue to provide a great education at Columbus Public Schools. We want to continue to contribute to the success of the community and things like our STEM program. And you talked about our early childhood is partnering with CCC. Mm-hmm. So there will be students coming from CCC to work at the Child Development Center as part of their degree work. Okay, that's awesome. And work in the preschool. Mm-hmm. And then we got a pathway with the hospital at the high school where they're going to be working basically on a medical pathway. That's a great way to, integrate them into those fields and hopefully keep them in the community. Absolutely. And so doing all those things, to continue to do that, we have to be responsive and not we have to stay pace with what's going on in the community. Right, exactly. Keep a pulse on it. So, well, that's awesome. I love it. I love hearing those stories, and I don't think people realize how many people there are in the community that are an active part of it. And so I appreciate everything you do. I know that's a big job, and I've told Dr. Loffelholz that as well. And like I said, you've got some great staff, so we'll be happy to do whatever we can to keep assisting with that. And is there any other questions, Matt? Anything you want to add?
No, I think you guys nailed it.
All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate all your time.
Sure.
And if there's anything we can do to help, then just holler. So.
Okay, thanks, Renee.
All right, thank you.